Hello, everyone. So, today is the day after posting the final episode of the Fire Emblem Fates Birthright playthrough, and today I want to talk about a little bit about my experience with the game and the very important lesson that it taught me. That being that I should never trust the internet or the internet's opinion about Fire Emblem ever again. For because for the ones who are new to the franchise, Fates is divided in three routes: Conquest, Birthright, and Revelation. Conquest is the Nor route, Birthright is the Hoshido route, and there's a relation path, which is the third neutral path, the Golden Path, where at the end everybody's friends with everybody. Birthright is the easier of the three, of easier than of is the easiest of the three, and also considered one of the easiest Fire Emblem games. Period, at the same tier of Western Path of Radiance and Sacred Stones. Um, um, Problem is, as you can clearly saw in the playthrough, it was anything but a cakewalk. Um, as me missing attacks in the 80s on a regular basis and enemies critting on like low percentage hits with what a test do, and also to make the perfect example to make the perfect example, I had missing a crit in the I believe it was in the final. I believe it was in the final map, the boss battle with Garen. I believe it was either that one or the second to last one. But I'm pretty sure it was the like phase two of the it was phase two of the Garen boss fight. But yeah, it was not the cakewalk that everybody says it is. And I can imagine. I have two theories why that's the case. Number one, because people played Conquest before, and of course they were so traumatized by how brutal Conquest was, because apparently Conquest is actually legitimately brutal. It's really, really hard. And that to the point that Davis G did an Iron Man of Conquest and did it on hard mode instead of whatever the highest difficulty is in Fates. I believe it's Lunatic. I could be wrong, and I don't want to check. See to find out. Also because I deleted the game from the hard disk. So yeah, after I posted the final video, I deleted everything in relation to that project, because of course there was no need to keep that stuff anymore. But yeah, that was one theory, and the second theory being that everybody just Ryoma spammed, used Ryoma to clear a majority of the map, and then used everybody else to clear the stragglers. To which, because also, if you don't know, Ryoma is arguably one of the is the best unit in Birthright by a large margin, and arguably one of the best units in Fire Emblem. Period, at the levels of people like Path of Radiance, Titania, and Seth. So yeah, it was that he's that powerful. So I guess that's one of the reasons why people say the Birthright is such a cakewalk. But again, if you saw my playthrough, it was anything but a cakewalk. So yeah, and of course, this actually gives me some problems. I mean, problems is like a big term, but it gives me some issues, because if I go around and say that I had trouble with Birthright, the usual reaction would be, "How the fuck did you do that?" I mean, how did you struggle with Birthright? It's like the easiest goddamn thing in the world. How the fuck did you struggle this much? And the only thing I can say is watch my playthrough, because everything is in there. There's proof of me struggling with the game, throwing so many curveballs and me having absolutely zero answer for it. But yeah, it was not a good it was not a good experience whatsoever. I mean, good experience. It was not an enjoyable experience. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, although I said that I'm never going to trust the internet's opinion of Fire Emblem ever again. On one thing, they were actually right. That being that the story is relatively inoffensive. Yeah, we're going to talk about the story because I guess what, we are in the hype period for Fortune's Weave, and everybody is praying that that game is good so that they can trash engage for one final time and setting up the inevitable ascension to godhood of Fire Emblem Three Houses. Um, the story is relatively inoffensive. Is it? I didn't find it boring as a lot of people say it was. Well, not really. I was somewhat entertained by it. Of course, the flaws are pretty, not pretty. The flaws are pretty evident. The fact that they overuse Daft as a maybe you ever use Daft of important characters. Probably the biggest offender is arguably Mikoto and Lilith because there was not much time you spent with them. I mean, just to make it since I just mentioned Engage with Lumira, at least you did spend a little bit more time before she died, and with Mikoto, you didn't do much. You just had like a couple of cutscenes, and then she died. So yeah, that was almost useless, and they did it purely because at this point is the main trope is the running gag. Sure, running gag is like pretty harsh considering that people die, but but it's the running not running joke. I'm gonna say it but it's like a trope that the reason why Mikoto dies is because they have to follow the trope of the main character's parent dying, unless they're Roma Liliana, whose mother ends up being still alive by the end of the game. But yeah, and of course there was also the middle there was the deep room swing, which I guess I cannot criticize much because it gave me Kanan Dwyer and Kiragi, and those three guys ended up being pretty good. Of course, I'm gonna talk about them a little in a second moment. But yeah, this story left me. Well, I don't want to say left me with nothing because because by saying that it means that saying this means that the story is actually pretty garbage because actually not it's like garbage because garbage assumes that you felt something that you were angry about it. But yeah, I didn't leave me nothing with it. But at the same time, I can say that about Path of Radiance and Path of Radiance. And yeah, I know it's sacrilegious to say that I don't feel anything about the Path of Radiance story and Ike's journey and all that. Especially in an era where now it looks like we can get rid of avatars, especially now that Fortune Review is gonna keep those. Although I don't know how, nobody knows how and why how they'll be used because you saw the trailers, the direct trailers, where it looked like we're controlling the the four characters, Kai, Lida, Dietrich, and Fyodora. But yeah, I guess it's like I think for I have a not feeling for a story is like a something that I already have. So yeah, but now for other reasons, one thing that actually surprised me in the positives was some of the units. Those being, and I three of them actually of the three that I already mentioned. I was mostly surprised about Kana, and the other one being I want to say Hayato is one of them, absolutely. The other one is Orochi. I want to say Orochi, but I don't know if she's actually good or I just got blast as is the usual with my playthroughs where bad units become good all of a sudden. But yeah, Kana and Hayato were like the biggest surprises because Hayato, yes, I heard the stories that the guy's pretty bad, and the fact that in many other playthroughs of Birthright, the guy is an immediate bench warmer. But I decided to give him a shot, and he was decent enough that I kept him for the entire playthrough, and even promoted him to Bazzara, and he was actually not bad. He did pretty decently for all things considered, and. And actually recruited him for a actually recruited him actually promoted him into a into a class that almost nobody uses if really people really decided to actually promote him because yes I saw the waifu video that Mecca did on Hayato, but yeah, Hayato was actually a genuine surprise, and Kana as well. Kana after doing the after recording the his paralog, which by the way I fucking hated. I really fucking hated that map. I asked around and asked if Kana was gonna be good because after all the bullshit I had to go through for recruiting his ass, I hope it actually I hope it was actually good. And the overreaction was, yeah, he's just like Korin, which means he could potentially be mid. But I said, you know what? I'm gonna keep him. Let's see what happens. And he went on to be one of my best units too. So yeah, that was also another. That was also a pretty big surprise on. That was also a pretty big surprise. Another actually surprise that I had was how quickly I ended up benching Azura and Hinoka. I honestly thought that Hinoka and Azura were going to be like main party members the entire from start to finish, but I ended up just dropping both her and dropping both of them because units started getting the units that were starting already were getting pretty good, and I know I probably pissed off a lot of people by benching Azura because I made stuff probably more complicated than it had to be, but still, with all the units that I had were doing a pretty decent job. Of course, outside of Ryoma, we got Korin was pretty good, Kagura was really good, of course Takumi was also pretty good. I mean, the Royals are pretty good. Even Sakura was actually doing pretty decent. Kana was actually doing good. Kiragi was doing good. Dwyer was doing good. So I completely ran out of space to use Azura, and yeah, that was honestly a surprise. A surprise, and actually more a surprise, more like a regret that I had is that I wasn't able to make Mozu good, because. I'll be honest. Yes, I did see the. I mean, I mentioned it, but I did see the Iron Man, the Conquest Iron Man that Davis G did, and now Mozu was pretty good in his playthrough. So I thought, you know what? Let's see if she's actually good. But unfortunately, she fell down pretty hard, and I had no choice to just drop her. And I guess she became the victim of me deciding to continue with the story and not do any of the skirmishes. Like as I stated, the only side content that I did were the paralogs for Kanadwire and Kiragi, and but yeah. And also, since I know somebody's going to mention why I never did the skirmishes, and that is mainly because. Well, I didn't do an engage, so I thought it should be pretty good. It should be good. It should be. I should be okay not doing them, and it was relative. It went pretty. It was right. Again, Mozu sucked. The fact that it dropped Mozu sucked, but everybody else. I didn't have to use any skirmishes, and they wanted to be pretty good anyway. So, yeah, I guess I was I would say justified, but I was right in just skipping that whole thing entirely. Um, and now in terms of maps, I cannot exactly tell you which map was my favorite. But I can tell you which I hated. And of course, I already mentioned the Kana paralog map. I think the last couple of maps were pretty bad. I hated them. They were not fun in the slightest. Another map that I really hated was the map where Flora was an enemy that unfortunately didn't get to see because OBS decided not to record. Or rather, I thought it was recording, but it didn't. And of course, I had no save to back up from. And I said this in the comment. I said this in the description of the video. But something like this already happened at the beginning of the playthrough. But fortunately, it was close enough that I had no problem restarting. It was like chapter 3 at the bottomless canyon or something. But yeah, it was not. It was not fun. But I had no problem restarting the play from the very beginning. So yeah. Um, so those were maps that I hated. Maps that actually kind of surprised me was the Xander map because I guess I wasn't so. I guess how can I say this? I guess the intention of the map was that it was supposed to be like a one-on-one between Xander and Korin, but because I had or Horochi, yeah, because I had Kagero in the team, that ended up being much more easier than it was probably meant to. That's probably I always wanted it to be, but I'm not complaining because yeah, after the last couple of maps, which were not fun at the slightest, at least they gave me some breathing space. And the Dwyer map because it took me 2 attempts to do it. In the first attempt, both Jacob and Orochi died in the sense of that they fell back, and I restarted the map purely out of embarrassment, and and the fact that I managed to clear that map in like 2 turns, in like 2 or 3 turns, I don't remember exactly the exact count, was honest to God surprise. Like I was caught completely off guard by that fact. And of course, another thing that did surprise me about the game is the fact that Corin dying does not mean automatic game over. Now, I'm aware that I was on casual mode, and in that case, what happens is that if you put casual mode, more often than not, the the game over condition is for everybody in your army to die, but if you know, in 3 houses and in Engage, if Alir and Byleth die, you can immediately restart the you can rewind you can rewind. But I thought, since this a game before this was the game right before the Yakas introduced the Miller's turn wheel, I thought, oh, if Corin dies, that's a straight game over. So of course, so imagine my surprise when that went on to be the case, and I could have kept going. Of course, it was not a good look. In fact, I actually hated it when that happened. But yeah, that was something that generally surprised me when that happened. That Corin dying didn't mean automatic game over. But that's not another thing that actually surprised me, but I don't remember. Oh yeah, the Camille boss map. The Camille boss map. I thought it was actually gonna be much more harder because before watching the playthrough, yes, I did watch the Iron Man that Davis G did on Birthright, and I thought, and he said this is one of the worst maps, and it was actually not that bad. Yeah, I did lose some units, but yeah, that actually wasn't all that. It wasn't all that bad. Honestly, I thought it was actually going to be worse. For that matter, I actually had more trouble with the Engage version of the map. Even though Camilla was just Camilla was not striking random place that was striking random targets at was striking targets at random. English, please. I had more trouble with the Engage version of the map than the generic product, which is weird to say. And of course, there are plenty of bosses that I would have loved to kill with Corin, but I ended up using other units. Fortunately, I managed to kill Garen with Corin, with of course help from Ryoma, but still, at least I managed to kill Corin. I managed to kill Garen with Corin. But yeah. And I guess that's really all I have to say about Fate's Birthright. as stated, it made me realize that what the internet says is probably not going to be the same thing that you are going to experience. And I have actually an example outside of Fire Emblem, and that is Chosen Cold Steel 2. I played that game on easy, and I struggled like hell. Good fucking lord. That game was a goddamn nightmare. I played on. I didn't beat any of the bosses on my first attempt. The final boss, it took me like 6 attempts. The actual final boss, by the way, took me like 6 attempts, because one of the bad things about Cold Steel 2 is the fact that the game had no idea when it wanted to finish. And even managed to get myself a game over at a oh god, I forgot the term. I don't want to say brace request, because that's the term used in Sky. But basically, side quest, I managed to get myself a game over. Um, so yeah, my experience with Cold Steel 2 was not fun in the slightest. And then when I say that to people, the overall reaction I get is, how I played it on Nightmare and it was a cakewalk. How the fuck is that even possible? Only had one guy that actually had potentially the same issues that I had, instead of them, everybody I talked to about Cold Steel 2, no, it was like the easiest thing ever. Like, I have no idea how did you struggle this much. Um, Also, that game involved a lot of my units missing, so a lot of my characters, because because Trails is an RPG instead of is a more traditional RPG than a tactical RPG, so instead of units, it's characters. But yeah, let's just say during the first phases of Cold Steel 2, Rin and the others just could not stop missing. I had to put like a quartz to actually improve accuracy. In fact, I had to actually manage to stop the chronic missing. Otherwise, I don't think I would be able to finish that game. And Sky FC, the original game, is exactly the same. In fact, I refuse to actually ever play those games ever again. But yeah, this was a learning experience to never trust the internet. And as I stated, because of struggling with the game that has the reputation of being the easiest shit ever. Of course, it's gonna be really, really difficult to. Yeah, I'm aware that I'm not a good Fire Emblem player, and I'm perfectly aware of that. Of course, I installed casual mode on Sacred Stones. I save stated every single time. I spent the entire playthrough path already save stating every turn, and even then that didn't work. In the case of Kieran. And of course, when it comes to Fire Emblem, if there's casual mode, casual mode. This was the same. Engage was the same. I played New Mister of the Emblem off camera, and I did the same. I'm aware I'm not a good Fire Emblem player, but yeah, it's still kind of embarrassing when stuff like this happens. So yeah, in retrospect, I should have played Phoenix mode and have no dignity whatsoever. But of course, everybody's good at playing is talking in hindsight. So yeah, not much to say here. But yeah, that was the day after Fire Emblem Fates Birthright, and I think the next game that I'm going to play for Fire Emblem is Shadow Dragon, the DS version of the game. I actually never finished that game, so yeah, I actually want to see if I can actually finish that. So yeah, I have nothing else to say, so see you in another video, folks.